Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. I am your host, Justin Dixon, and today we've got Andrew Ackerman on the podcast. He is the head of Reach Labs at Second Century Ventures, but his story is very interesting. He started his career in consulting before shifting into being a startup founder. We talk about his first startup, which is very fascinating. He's also been an angel investor. He's worked in VC startups as well as built some accelerator programs. Oh, and he's also written a book. So we dive deep into kind of his journey from founder to investor and now author. And so I think you'll get a lot out of this episode. So let's get Andrew on the pod. Interested in hearing conversations with private equity leaders, CEOs of private equity-backed companies, and startup entrepreneurs where they share their stories about their career journeys, starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, and the important role that having the right talent plays in building a successful business, then you are in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Capital Podcast. Here's your host, Justin Dixon. All right, Andrew, thank you for being a guest on the podcast. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, well, let's jump right in. I guess give the people listening and watching a little bit of an overview of who you are, where you are, and what you're up to right now.
Sure, no worries. Coming to you from New York, freezing my balls off. When I'm not complaining about the weather, I do everything from investing in startups to advising large corporations how to set up, corporate innovation or corporate venture funds. And, occasionally I write articles, a book, which I promise you I will plug shamelessly, but not within the first 10 seconds.
Fair enough. Well, we'll unpack a lot of the stuff because you have a very interesting background, given that you've been a founder. You also are an investor. You've also helped build accelerators and VC funds. So I guess let's go back to the beginning. How did you start your first business? What was it? Why did you start it? Like, how did you figure out you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Like, I sometimes say, like, you've been on both sides of the table. Great. I've been on like 5 sides of the table. But I started off, don't let the boyish charm fool you. I'm kind of old. So when I came out of business school, like, there was none of this startup culture. Right? There's nothing. Like, no one knew about that. So I was a consultant for 4 years. And then suddenly towards the end of the 90s, I'm on this project and like this whole interwebs thing is going on. And we built this this tool where 2 companies that were merging could like submit their information blindly on these websites, and that was merged, and you got pro formas, which was like an awesome thing to do like at that point in time. It meant that 2 companies can merge without the teams getting contaminated. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, that didn't exist 4 years ago, but now I know that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I quit. I moved back to New York. Within like 9 months, I'm at my first startup doing, of all things, internet services for summer camps.
Okay. Interesting. How did you figure out that internet services was like how did that kind of come about? Like, that's a very niche thing to kind of focus on.
Yeah. So like, while I was back in New York, I would get together with a bunch of my friends, and like we talk about like the dumb startup ideas that were coming out in like 98, 99, right? 2000. And my friend's like, we've got this idea. It's going to be like, like powering the websites for summer camp. So like parents could see photos of their kids while they're at camp, and they can send them notes, but they don't get sent anywhere. The kids don't have to be anywhere near a computer. And I'm like, gee, Eric, like, I don't see anything obviously wrong with that. That's actually not a horrible idea. So Eric turns to me and says, well, think about it for a week, because in a week, my brother's starting that with his friend, and they're looking for a third co-founder. So to answer your question, like, I blindly stumbled into it. I love camp as much as the next guy, but I kind of blindly stumbled into it because it was an interesting opportunity, and I was in the right place at the right time.
So how long did that startup last, and what did you exit? Did you sell, or kind of, how did the next ones kind of come about?
Yeah, sure. So I was there for 8 years. Company kept going beyond that. I was bought out. Longish story, but we built it basically from nothing. I still remember when CEO was going around like with a CD-ROM to like demonstrate what it was. That's how like early in the process we were. Grew it to, I think, about 2,000-3,000 camps. I don't remember exactly. We got to a point where we were kind of running a process to sell it. CEO didn't love the prices he was getting. I thought they were very fair. So I said, listen, if that's too little for you to sell for, you should be thrilled to buy me out at that price. And after a little bit of hemming and hawing, we agreed to like an
Mm.
orderly transition. I hired my successor. Company kept going for a bunch of years. It was acquired by a private equity fund and ultimately rolled up. So happy endings all around.
Okay.
I just got mine a little early, and I just realized that's probably a poor choice of words. Um, but I got my exit a little early that way, and then I went on to other
Yeah.
things.
So I know when we were talking before we started recording, you've kind of been a startup founder a few times. You've also been an angel investor, and now you are head of Reach Labs at Second Century Ventures. So maybe let's flash forward to the present. And so, what are you working on now? And then obviously we got to talk about the book at some point soon. So let's
Yeah,
start
and we
with
can talk about the
Second Century
transition,
Ventures.
right? So to give you like the very, very quick overview, and then we'll jump in. Like as I was working at Bunk One, the summer camp startup, I'd made my first couple of angel investments, got really, really
Mm.
lucky, right? Not skill, just luck, got hooked. And then I was working in a family office. I had a little bit more exposure to that. And then ultimately I got involved with an accelerator called Dream It, VC fund. Did that for a bunch of
Okay.
years. And then ultimately, I left. And among other things, right now I'm working with Second Century Ventures. So I've been investing in the real estate technology and the construction technology space, like prop tech and contech, we call it, for about 7 or 8 years now. And Second Century is a fund that was started by the National Association of Realtors, almost like a corporate venture fund, but
Okay.
sponsored by an association. And they set up a bunch of programs around the world called Reach, which were sort of like later stage accelerators. So it was kind of what I had ended up building for Dream It a couple of years earlier. They were building something very similar in parallel. So when I left Dream It, it was like natural. We talked, we got to go do something together. So they asked me to build this Reach Labs program, which was actually not an investment program, but it was for these realtor associations and other real estate related associations to be able to find startups on their own and bring it to their members as potential like software they could use.
Hmm.
So I built and launched 16 labs around the country. And right now it's pretty self-sustaining.
So is the labs, is it kind of like almost like an angel investing club or an investing club for these real estate like real estate folks, or is it really to kind of find software for them to like make their day jobs easier, better, faster, et
The
cetera, or
latter,
both?
the latter, very much so. While
Okay.
some of the associations will make their own investments on the side, the way we presented this is like, hey, Justin, this is a framework, right? You're like Miami Realtors. You got 40,000 real estate agents as your members, and you're doing stuff like, you're lobbying state and local governments. You're making sure that they have, forms and other good deals, member benefits. You should also be looking ahead of the curve on the technology stack, right? What can you bring to your members that help them find more business, close more business, take the pain out of running their business, help them make more money off of like the business they're doing. So all those things are part of your mission. So we made it super simple, super lightweight. You don't need to invest in them. Honestly, if you invite a startup to come and talk to your members, like they're already a winner, right? They've got an opportunity to pitch to hundreds of potential customers.
Mm.
So it became a series of what we called innovation showcases that ultimately, like, I would help these organizations launch. And once they got it, we took the training wheels off, and I'm just here to help out on the side, but you guys can run.
And then why prop tech? Why real estate tech? Why prop tech?
So real estate and construction tech, I look at them both together. And because they were severely under indexed. So back when we looked at it, and when I was at Dream It, this was in 2016, I was doing ed tech, education technology, stuff for universities or K-12.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to launch something in this real estate sector. Construction tech was like a small rounding error on that at that point. And we're like, do we really want to do this? So we looked at all the activity in the prior year at the earliest stages, at what we call the seed or Series A level. And it turned out that the activity in that space was exactly at the same level that it was when 8 years we had first launched the health tech practice that we ran. And the health tech practice took off. So like, okay, this might be at that inflection point. So then we made about 100+ calls to real estate operators, developers, property managers, architects, real estate firms, like realtor firms, brokerages, I meant to say. And you just got to get a sense like, are they at that tipping point where they're interested in adopting tech? Because the whole sector, when you think about it, the built environment, like real estate and construction, is the second largest sector in the global economy after financial services. But the startup activity, relative to the size of the sector, if you compare fintech to financial services, and then you compare built environment to like the venture stuff, the prop tech, construction tech, we are way under indexed there. There should be much,
Yeah.
much more, many, many more startups coming up to service a sector of that size. And there have been historic reasons why it's been underserved, but we felt we were at just the right time, and we were. Like the sectors both took off over the couple of years after we started investing in it.
And then putting your investing hat on, because a lot of people I talk to, either have a startup and they need to raise capital, or they're an investor and they're investing in startups, whether they're, angel investing, which is very early, very risky. Most of those go to zero, or a good majority of them. And then you've got obviously VC is still risky, but not as, and then you've got obviously private equity, which is still risky, but not as. How do you think about or evaluate startups, both at the angel stage and also obviously you've been on the VC side? Like, what's the difference when you, as an evaluative measure of, okay, this is an angel investment, here's the amount of money I'm willing to risk, and obviously you're probably expecting a better return than maybe a VC. So how do you think about those two kind of different points in the investment life cycle? How do you think about that?
So that's actually a great question. Let me start by saying that, like, if you're an angel investor or an early stage VC, you're in a weird world. Like, what other worlds can you go in there and say, yeah, a third of the investments I made died within a year. I'm doing great. Right? That's the weird world we're in. And, how are you going to know if you've done well? Ask me again in 10 years, right? Because that's that long lag. It's not like I bought a stock, it went down. Okay, I made a mistake. Let's change the algo, right? This kind of long lag. So it's kind of a very, very strange industry. And the earlier you invest, the longer that lag is, the longer that feedback loop is. So it's kind of weird that way. Now, there's a couple of general principles I use, right? So number one, a startup is a chain. It's not a rope. And what I mean by that is, if you visualize a rope and some of the strands are frayed, the rope probably can still hold, up to a point. But if any one link in a chain is broken, it's useless. So the startups that make it and will get funded and hopefully succeed are ones where all the chain links are there and are strong, or strong enough. Now, take that in mind. The second piece I'm looking for is I want startups that can get as far as they can get before they're asking me for money, or before they're asking for a certain amount of money. So, to just build your startup from scratch, it used to be you couldn't do anything, right? I mean, like, go back 15 years, Amazon Web Services, 15 years? Yeah, no Amazon Web Services, no GitHub. There was no, a series of APIs, a lot of other software you can just plug in. Everything you had to do, you did from scratch. I mean, in some, not my time, but just not that long before I got in, if you wanted to put up a website, you took a server and you put it under your desk in an air-conditioned case. I mean, at least when I came in, we had we could put our servers in this other building. It was temperature controlled with backup power and all that. But, it was really hard. So back then you could go to a VC and say, like, here's my plan. I've done nothing because I can't do anything without money. Let me have some money.
Right.
And I'll build it. Now, over the past 20 years, it's become so much easier to get a lot further with a lot less. Right? Amazon Web Services, you don't have to own your own server. It's all virtual. It's all in the cloud. Spin it up, spin it down, no big deal. GitHub, I don't have to write all my code. Vibe coding, I made out somebody else. I have a machine write code, right? APIs, I don't have to build that. I'll just plug in someone else's tool, free, pay them, whatever it is. All those things let you get a lot further, a lot faster with a lot less money. So when I look at it as an angel investor, like beforehand, meaning 20 years ago, you could say, hey, I need this money to build. Right now, if you come to me and say, I need this money to build, I'm like, no, you don't. I want to see you get as far as you can get. So you might raise a little bit of money from friends and family before you raise money from like an outside angel. But by the time you're raising money from an angel or an early stage, like seed stage VC, we're already starting to look like, is the product done or mostly done? And there are exceptions, right? If you're doing certain industries, you just can't. But
Yeah.
like, have you gotten as far as you can? And now the next step is to give you that minimum next amount of money that will help you prove that you have product market fit. And then, that's usually the seed round is proving that. And then to go on, like, since
Yeah.
you asked, was it different? When you're coming back for an A round, it could be 18 months to 2 years later. And instead of raising, and this is the non-AI super inflated, I'm building my own LLM. I'm talking about your normal SaaS startup. So if your first seed round is like
Yeah.
3 million plus or minus, right? Then you kind of proven product market fit. When you're going for your A round and you're raising, 8, 10, $12 million, maybe $20 million, depending on the industry. Like, I'm looking for, this product market fit. Like, do you have $1 million in revenue, $2 million in revenue, 3 million? I'm looking for something like that. And I'm even starting to
Yeah.
look at, what's your sales process like, right? Does it work? Right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Your pricing may not be perfect. Your sales process is definitely not perfect, but is it good enough? Because once I give you this $10 million for your A round, I want you to be able to scale that. Like, that money is for scaling and growing fast, right? You're always still building, you're always still experimenting, but at this point, like, you've got something that people want, you need to blow it out the door. So, when I'm
Yeah.
looking at the A round, I'm looking for enough proof that they have product market fit already. And I'm looking to see if the team they have or are putting in place is the team that can go scale it. So those are kind of the differences about what we're looking for at the different stages.
Yeah. You may have already answered this a little bit, but I interviewed a guy who is a non-technical tech founder, and he spent 3 months, I think, vibe coding an app that essentially worked for him, right? It got to the point where it was, a usable app that you could download, put on your phone. It was a home kind of cooking kitchen app where you could like load up all of your things you had in your house and say, I want to make this, and oh, you forgot
Mm-hmm.
this, so you got to go order it from HEB or name your grocery store. Anyway, thoughts on vibe coding for an angel to say, hey, I've built this proof of concept that actually works. Maybe they don't have a lot of users. Maybe it's like beta. Like,
Yep.
do you think that is a good innovation so that maybe there's more opportunity for folks like myself that are not technical, that couldn't write a line of code to save my life, but now I can go talk to Lovable and it can create something enough to pitch to somebody like yourself to say, hey, I've got this far. My next hire is going to be somebody technical to take it from here to there.
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is yes, but there's kind of a double-edged sword to it. So let me kind of unpack that for you. Remember, I'm looking for you to prove certain assumptions, right? Your startup is risky because there's certain things that you are assuming that if they're right, you're awesome, you got $1 billion business. If they're wrong, we're all going to lose our money, right? So some of those things you can test before you go out there and build. So let's say you have an e-commerce business. You're selling, I don't know, like scented adult diapers. I don't know why I came up with that idea. It's late in the day, right?
That's an interesting
Yeah,
random
I must have come up in a
option.
prior conversation. But let's say you're selling that. It's an e-commerce business.
Yeah.
So you're going to live and die by your cost of customer acquisition. A lot of businesses do. And in this case, the cost per click when you're trying to bring people in relative to what they buy. So you're like, well, I don't know. I can't build it. Well, guess what? For $100, you can go on and do a Google AdWords buy on the keywords you think are going to work and figure out, what are you paying? What's your cost per click? Right. So, okay, I can move. I think it's going to cost me this dollar and these many dollars per click to now I know I can get it for that. Maybe I can even get it for less once I've tweaked it. And then instead of building your whole store, you could build your whole store in Shopify or Wix, but you build your store on Squarespace, whatever it is. And then you just offer it. And now I can actually say not only how much it costs to get it, what percentage of those people buy, how much they buy. So now I know whether or not like the entire business model behind it works. And I don't even have to make the diapers. I can put it up there, and the moment you click buy, I'm like, hey, coming soon, give me your email address. But at least I know you were going to buy. And
Right.
maybe some people bail with it in the cart, but most people don't.
Right.
You're at least pretty close. So all those things which were assumptions on your spreadsheet model of your business move from being guesswork or an assumptions to I've proved this. I've proved it. And when you've proven an assumption, that
Yeah.
makes your startup less risky. So everything we're talking about is proving it. So where does vibe coding come in? Um, was it as a psalm? There's nothing new under. No, it's not a psalm. Nothing new under the sun is Ecclesiastes, right? So back in the early day, we used to talk about things like the Wizard of Oz prototype or the index card app. I talk about the index card in my book. I talk about that. So I'll give you both of those stories, and you'll kind of get a sense of it. So the Wizard of Oz prototype is doing everything manually behind the scenes. So it was a company that was going through the Dream It Accelerator program, and they had built, or they said they had built, a service where people that were advertising on social media, large companies, and they're trying to figure out like how much money do I put on Twitter, how much do I put on Facebook? This was a while ago, and they were doing it all manually with spreadsheets. They automated the process. People can give money. They would give them a report once a week, and they say you should move X from here to there. What they really had is they had a bunch of interns running those algorithms manually on reports and spreadsheets, and they compiled the report and they sent it out, and they made the changes. But to the customer, it looked seamless. It looked like it was working. So when that company went to pitch, the investors like, well, how do you know people will pay for it? And they said, well, we're already collecting $500,000 ARR for the service. How are you doing it? Oh, we have interns doing it manually. Like, well, what do you want the money for? We just need to automate that, right? It's not scalable to have 50 interns in the background doing this, but it proves the most important thing. Will people pay for it? So with vibe coding, it's another way to prove you've got something that people want. They'll download it, they'll use it, they'll pay for it. Whether you can go take it and have a professional programmer like make it work better, add functionality to it, all that's not a crazy assumption. I don't need you to prove that. I need you to prove people want this thing and will pay for it. So if you can do that with vibe coding, that's awesome.
No, I love it. I think I think vibe coding is very interesting. I'm curious, kind of, we're recording this kind of early February 2026. Because you've been investing for quite a while, and I'm curious just to get your sense on the market for VC funding. Like, are you seeing deal flow increase, stay the same as it was the last few years? Like, and maybe what are some of the more interesting things that you're being pitched?
Sure. Happy to tell you what I'm interested. What I'm being pitched. It's very cool. But I want to tell you something for the founders who are watching this. Don't worry about market cycle. Good companies will be funded in good times and bad. Bad companies, you may get lucky in good times and get a little money, but you're going to fail anyway. So don't worry about it. If it is the right time to do what you're doing and you have a great startup and a great team, go and do it. Your valuation might be a little lower, a little higher, but don't worry about it, right? I mean, not don't worry about it, but don't let that slow you down. Now, I've been through a couple of cycles. It's better now than it was last year. In my sector in particular, 2021, 2022 were boom times. It was great. So it's been better. It's been worse. When it's really, really frothy from my side of the table right now, you get all these amateurs coming in, bidding up the valuations for startups. You get kind of silly startups getting funded. It's a little hard for me because then I either have to be disciplined and pass on those, and then I look like, I'm an idiot to my LPs for a while because I'm not doing any investments, or I kind of have to cross my fingers and do it knowing that I'm overpaying. And that's a tough position to be in when times are frothy. When it's less hot, all those amateurs who want to talk about, I had this great startup I invested in, they're like, I'm worried, I'm putting my money into treasuries. So then, as far as I'm concerned, I have less pressure and more startups, more quality startups to choose from. So the cycle factors onto my side of the table a little bit more because I'm either having my hands forced or I'm having a pretty open field, better shopping experience.
Yeah, I'm curious about because you invest in a lot of tech startups, and AI is embedded in everything, or the website is .ai or something. I'm curious how you evaluate what is AI versus not AI versus more or less just a wrapper around an LLM versus, like, I like the way you put it, the Wizard of Oz prototype, where it looks like AI, but it's really interns behind the scenes doing all the work. So how do you kind of evaluate that before you make an investment?
Yeah. So like this happens, right? Insert blockchain, insert speech to text, insert machine vision, which is both of those are forms of AI. But the form of AI we talk about now is generally the kind of I can plug in a different LLM, I don't have to build it myself type. Um, every time
Yeah.
these things come out, the good news is it's a legitimate answer to the question, why now? Like, why is this the right time to invest in a startup like this? Because 2 years ago couldn't have been made. So that's great. But then you have all the founders coming in
Yeah.
and they rush in and like they start sprinkling like fairy dust on top of their startups, right? Our startup has no need to be on blockchain, but we're going to say it's on blockchain. Why? I don't know. People are investing in blockchain. Uh, does it have AI? Oh, it's got
Mm.
AI. It's got agentic AI. Can you define agentic AI? Right? No. So a lot of times they're just kind of throwing the buzzwords out there because they think they need to, because that's what all the cool kids are doing. Um,
Yeah.
I'm very disciplined about it, I think, right? I need to know, like, do you need this for your startup and how are you using it? So I make a distinction on the AI side and on the blockchain, all that kind of stuff. Are you building the tools or are you using the tools? So, are you building an LM or are you
Mm.
applied AI? I am applying AI in a real estate example. So for a very, very simple example, it's easy to understand. Uh, Real estate agents, they need to write descriptions of properties when they want to put them up, on the multiple listing service, right, when they're representing a seller. Most real estate agents are not good writers. My wife's solution is she asked me to rewrite it. No problem. I'm happy to do it. Not scalable. I'm not doing that for other people. So startup comes along
Right.
and it says, great, just give me all the information about the startup, the pictures. I'll figure it out. I'll write the description for you. Great tool, plugs right in. Very simple use of AI. You train it well within the AI environment, knows things it can't say or it can say. Like there are laws about saying kind of what district it's in or how close it is to a park. So I want to redline it. So it helps to have it
Mm.
programmed for real estate. But that's an applied AI
Yeah.
solution for real estate. They're training somebody else's base LLM to do something. Could be great businesses, but they're a very different profile. They require a heck of a lot less money than I want to be the next OpenAI.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I want to kind of transition because I could drive down the AI rabbit hole too deep for us in this podcast. But let's talk a little about the book, The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. How did you come up with it? Why did you come up with it? And kind of what's the overall thesis of the book and all that? I'm curious.
Sure, sure. So there's a couple of things that came together. So rather than bury the lead, the whole idea, what it's about is this is a friend of mine came up with this. So I want to give him credit where credit is due. He describes it as lean startup meets The Alchemist. So it's written like a novel
Okay.
about a fictional startup, taking them all the way through from idea, solo founder with an idea, all the way through to closing its first round of financing. So there are a couple of streams that came together to get me to write this book. One was as I made the transition from being a founder myself to an angel investor, but really when I got into the accelerator setting and I'm meeting with startups every week, and I'm giving them advice, I realized that, when I just gave the advice and I said, hey, Justin, listen, you're going to put up a dummy website. You're going to test, the AdWords cost per click and the conversion. People are like, oh, okay, that's good advice. And they usually took it because I was giving them money, but, maybe not, right? It wasn't top priority. But when I said, listen, like, here's this other startup, they were a freemium startup too. They knew they lived and died based on this conversion, how many people went from free to pay. They were going to go code everything all the way through until the end of the program and then come up on stage and tell everyone, how it did. We're like, well, what happens if the numbers aren't good? And they're like, oh, that's a good point. So we got them to put up just a buy now button. Right? They hadn't built anything. Buy
Mm.
now, coming soon. And they come back the next week and they're like, we're fucked, right? Like our conversion rate is nowhere near where we need it to be. Um, this isn't going to work. And within a week, they pivoted in a
Yeah.
different direction, went totally sideways. And then by the time demo, they rolled up, they raised their seed round because it was a very cool new idea. And now that company is a unicorn. That company is SeatGeek, if you're familiar with them. But they almost didn't
Oh, wow.
happen. They almost didn't happen because, they were in that mindset, well, I'm going to go build it and we'll see what happens. And we're like, hey, no, you can test it first. So
Yeah.
now, just judging by your reaction, like the first, oh, here's the facts, you should go do this. You're like, okay, that's sound advice. And then I'm like, story, big reveal. You're like, oh, right. So now the founders, like, they see themselves in the story, right? And it's very like vivid to them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, I can definitely do that. We identify with it. So I started to realize the power of example and story as a way to be more effective in the advice that I gave. And then as that was like coming together, I remembered a book that I'd read in business school called The Goal. It's the only textbook I remember from business school or undergrad.
Mm.
And it was a novel about a guy that had to turn around this failed printing plant. And it was everything going on in his life. And he had a mentor that was talking him through the process. And it wasn't great literature, but it was a super memorable way to learn these kind of operations and strategy lessons. And I'm like, got it. Okay, I'm going to take the examples, put them into this novel. That's how I'm going to do it. And then I just needed like 8 years to find the time to actually do it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the book is live. It's launched. Is it on Amazon? Can people get it? Is there an Audible version?
Absolutely. So it's on Amazon
to get it?
It's on Amazon where everything is. If you want, you can just search for it. It's called The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. It's got this really cool cover. By the way, there's a lot of like puns and dad jokes. So if you look really closely, like the guy's in the maze with the chainsaw. He's like hacking his way through. Or, it's a novel guide to startup success. There's a lot of like corny stuff like that. It drives my daughters nuts. It's on Amazon. I don't think there's any other book by that name. If you can't find it or you're curious, like my website is Andrew, B as in boy, Ackerman.com. So you can go there and there are links to get the book that way too.
I guess as we kind of wind things down here, what are your thoughts on, I guess, and goals, I guess, for 2026? Like, are you still actively investing in startups? Are you more focused on the Reach Labs and rolling out, you said you rolled out 16. Are you trying to do 20, 25? Like, what's the 2026 kind of goals for Andrew?
The Reach Labs, I think we've reached, no pun intended, most of the groups that want to do it. So we're turning that into something a little bit more self-sustaining. So I'm looking at what I want to do next, and I'll either come in and an investing role at a fund, is particularly a fund that maybe wants more senior firepower in construction tech or prop tech, or maybe I'll go in on the innovation side, either as a consultant or chief innovation officer, VP innovation. Like, I love building platforms that actually support this, so I could do that. Or maybe I'll come in as an operator. Like, as you know, we talked about this before the show. The CEO that founded the company isn't always a CEO that takes it the rest of the way. Sometimes they step aside, sometimes they're pushed aside. But I wouldn't mind coming in as a CEO or COO, right? Even if it's a successful founder, to a company that's starting to scale. So those are the things I'm looking for 2026, and to continue investing on the side.
No, it makes sense. I'm curious because obviously you've invested in a lot of companies, and the old adage, "What got you here won't necessarily get you there." Do you see that a lot with startup founders, where they hit a ceiling, and they need to kind of, and what is that typical ceiling? Is it $1 million? Is it 10 million? Is it 5? Like, what is the ceiling that you kind of typically see? Like, hey, this is not, you're not going to be a Zuckerberg or whatever to get it to the the billions of dollars. You're really like a good 0 to 1 person.
Like, your mileage may vary is the phrase that keeps coming back, right? So a good number of the startups I have backed, the founders have grown into those roles. And give them all the credit in the world. The part that I can maybe take some small credit for is, I specifically look for startups that I think are coachable in that way, that will surround themselves with people who are smart, not take advice uncritically, but like will think about it, be thoughtful about it, understand why they take it. So those are the kind of companies that they managed to make that transition. I was having a conversation a couple of months back with one of the companies that had just crossed the $10 million mark. Uh, and, like their process was working pretty well. So, Mark was trying to think, what do I do next? I do it. And I said, listen, Mark, you're not at any point in your career, especially early on, you should be thinking like, how do I double or triple this business? When you get like even further, how do I add 50% to the top line? When you're just getting
Yeah.
started, like, doubling it from a million, like you just do it, you get more customers, more salespeople. But at your point in the process, you're going to tweak the sales force and 20% improvement. You got to look for what the next level up. And maybe that's acquisitions, right? Maybe it's, you're buying somebody else in your space that's got no tech and you're buying their book of business. Maybe you're buying your competitor that's
Yep.
kind of up against the wall cash wise. Maybe they have good tech. Maybe you're buying an adjacent company that you can add on and increase your revenue per user, an upsell, cross sell. Those are where, if you're at the 10 million mark and you're looking to add, 5 million to the top line at a pop, that's where you got to start thinking about it. So you go as a founder from like, I got to make this work and make my first couple of sales. So like, I got that. I need to build a sales force that can scale it. And then you get to like, okay, I need to be thinking strategically, what are the next big moves, new geographies, acquisitions, those kind of things.
Got it. Love it. No, it makes a ton of sense. Well, Andrew, I could unpack a lot more. You've got a lot in your background that we could dive deep into in multiple podcasts, but I know I don't want to take up all of your time. So we'll round out the episode like we do on every episode with a 3-pack of questions. First question here is, other than your own book, which we'll give you make sure they have the link to, what is a book that you would, or podcast that you would recommend, maybe that you found helpful through your journey?
Sure. So like, I have a confession to make. I find most business books to be deathly boring, even the really good ones. Early in my career, I got on Fred Wilson's blog. It's called AVC. I don't know if he's still writing or not, but he's been writing.
Okay.
This is Fred Wilson from Union Square Ventures. He'd been writing from going back to like, I think 2006, 2007. Great stuff about how he thinks about startups, what startups should be doing. I also read a very interesting book early in my career by Jeff Busgang from Flybridge Ventures called Mastering the VC Game. So if you want to understand, if you're a founder and you want to understand how the VC mind works, how funds are structured, what's going on that side of the table, that book was very valuable to me. And Jeff continues to write. He has a book out about hyperscaling with AI, which I have not read yet, but I mean, I've read enough by him that I would recommend that too. And then, of course, if you're a founder starter or you're thinking about starting it, the whole point of my book was to have everything that you needed, from soup to nuts about, what you need to look out for. How can you do things better, faster, cheaper, reduce your uncertainty before you raise, be more effective at fundraising. So, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I like the fact that your book is like The Alchemist. It was funny. We posted over the holidays, kind of the top book recommendations of 2025. And The Alchemist was one of the top, from all of our previous, episodes. So that was interesting. And I just started reading it, and it is, it's not what I thought it was going to be, because I didn't have any preconceived notion of what it was. But as I'm getting further and further into it, I can see it has business kind of adjacencies to it, but also has life, lessons, and you can kind of put yourself in that person's shoes, and it's very, it's kind of interesting. So I'll have to definitely check your book out for sure. So, second question here: what is your favorite thing you do outside of work?
Ooh, so I have 3 teenage daughters, so being yelled at is way up there. But for my own sake, I try to get in a run once or twice a week, and I listen to my podcast while I run. And then, on vacations, depending on whether I go, west or south, either swimming or skiing.
Got it. Well, that dovetails very nicely into the final question: is what is your favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, so I don't have one spot. Like, I love going to new places. And what I love about, like, ideally, they're like ruins. Right, so we just went down to Playa del Carmen in Mexico.
Okay.
I'd already been to Chichen Itza, but if you're ever in Cancun or Playa del Carmen, absolutely you must see it. It's like a wonder of the world. And while we were down there, we went and we saw a couple other things. So for me, it's like any place with like history and ruins and culture, and preferably, a beach.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Andrew, if people want to learn more about you, obviously we've got your website that you mentioned earlier. We'll make sure that's in the show notes, but any other place that people can reach out to if they want to learn more about what you invest in, how you invest, if they're a prop tech founder, et cetera, you've got a lot of things that people can reach out to you about. What's the best way?
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff, if you go to my website, it'll hook into my blog. So you can see a lot about how I think about things. You'll also see a bunch of these podcasts because I try to post those to my my site or, my Instagram or my LinkedIn feed. The other place you can go is LinkedIn. The only thing I'll ask is I only link to people who I know because I use that for warm intros, but you can message me through it. If you're a startup in my space and it's relevant, absolutely feel free to reach out. Or, if it's relevant, one thing I don't do very well is when people come in and say, hey, I've got this, ad tech startup. Can you help me out? I'm like, I don't know that field. I'm not the right guy to talk to.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to follow me. You're welcome to, do whatever you want to do. But that's the best way to learn about me professionally.
Awesome. Andrew, man, really appreciate the time. It was great to connect and learn more about you. I'll definitely have to check your book out, but I really appreciate you being a guest on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was fun.
I hope you found at least one actionable insight from this episode of the Growth Capital Podcast, your one-stop shop for insights from private equity leaders, CEOs, and startup entrepreneurs on starting, investing in, and scaling successful businesses, as well as the role having the right talent plays in growing a successful business. It would be greatly appreciated if you would rate and review this podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and drop us a comment so we can expand the audience of this podcast. Thank you for all your support, and don't forget about upcoming episodes dropping every Tuesday.